Well, good morning. I am very sorry I am not here again today. Please know it just can't be helped. So, I'm going to go through the Bill of Rights notes, and I know that we have done more than this. I just decided to start at the very beginning, find the place where we stopped, and then move forward. So here we go. We're starting with, of course, the First Amendment the first of the Bill of Rights. There are five rights attached to that: freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and to petition the government. So we're going to start with free speech, and there we go. And so we're going to look at what the Constitution says. It says Congress shall make no laws abridging or stopping the freedom of speech. However, there are limits, okay, and these limits are the following, okay. Threaten to blow up airplanes, schools, or the presidents, sexual harassment, create too much social chaos and extremely crude language in a public forum, and finally, disrespectful, vulgar language in schools. These are not acceptable. You cannot make unreasonable threats. You certainly shouldn't be allowed to be sexually harassing other people. And to create too much chaos, that's that idea of you can't yell fire in a theater if there's no fire. Extremely crude language in a public forum, and disrespectful, vulgar language in schools. This is why I tell you, you are not allowed to cuss in my classroom. All right, that is not protected speech. All right, and then of course hate crimes. The issue of hate crimes has become a greater um, concern as we continue to become aware of differences between people, and that treating people inappropriately is never a good thing. Right. Now, there are things that we as individuals are allowed to do. We can't do. We can say any political belief that we have. We can protest without getting out of control. This looks to me like it's starting to get out of control, but maybe not. As long as they stay behind those barriers, they can yell vulgar things. They shouldn't be doing that, but they can yell things and say their political beliefs. They can protest without getting out of control. They can say things about someone that are true. You cannot tell a lie, but you can say something about somebody that is true. You can burn the flag. You can say racist and hate slogans. And finally, free speech means someone might say something that you disagree with, and they're allowed. It's acceptable. But the important thing is, they are also allowed to be heard. Now, the next one is about freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is at the forefront of our nation's freedoms, because much of the reason why we began had to do with freedom of religion. All right, so here's what the Constitution says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. In other words, they cannot establish a religion, that'd be a state religion, and they can't stop or prohibit the exercise or the practice of a religion. Okay, so both of those are extremely important. Those two parts are very important. This establishes the two clauses. This goes with this. It says no law respecting the establishment. That's called the Establishment Clause. Prohibiting the free exercise. That's known as the Free Exercise Clause. All right, so let's start with the Establishment Clause. Government cannot promote religion. Okay, they cannot, and that includes schools. We cannot tell you what religion you have to believe in. We cannot say to you, in order for you to hold an office, you have to believe a certain way, or you have to have a certain religion. The reason for this is because that was exactly what was happening in England. Unless you belong to the Church of England at the time of the creation of the Bill of Rights, you could not hold office. You had no real standing in the country. You must belong to the Church of England. Well, of course, that was something we wanted to not have in our country. So government cannot promote a religion. Okay. Here's things the government can and cannot do, right? So, right. We can teach religion in schools. We can allow voluntary prayer in many instances. We can transport students to a religious school, and we can allow you, and you are allowed to read the Bible for cultural or literary content. This means that, for example, we could offer a class in Islam or Christianity or Catholicism or so on. I mean, there's so many different religions out there. We could teach about it. We can allow voluntary prayer. Like if you want to go ahead and pray before the class starts, you can certainly do that. I can't lead it. That's something I cannot do. You can do it. You can do it quietly to yourself, and you are welcome to do that. But you cannot make it so everybody has to be a part of it. And of course, kids can be transported to religious schools if their parents have requested that. And it is possible to read the Bible for cultural and literary content. So it's not like the Bible is banned. That's not true. All right. Now, this government, and remember, we're talking here about the government. We're not talking about the individual. We're talking about the government. Government cannot set a state religion. I already told you that. We cannot order prayer. I have to tell you, when I was growing up, that was exactly what every day in school, the principal came on and read and did a prayer. And when I was about 6th grade, I want to say, that was outlawed as stepping over the bounds of having a state religion. So you cannot order prayer, cannot teach religious doctrine, meaning I can't teach you what you should believe. That's religious doctrine. And we cannot pay, or the government cannot pay seminary or religious school teachers. Okay, so again, remember, this is government. Now, and can't teach creationism. Okay. Now, here we go. People, however, you have the right to free exercise. You can choose to believe any religion that you want. You can lead a prayer in most instances. You can ask questions about religions in school. You're welcome to. You can break the law. You cannot break the law and claim it's a religious belief. In other words, what you cannot do is say you have a religious belief that might be similar to the Aztec, and which they believed in child sacrifice or human sacrifice. And you cannot say, well, that's my religion, and think that you're going to get away with it. You can't. But there is a, ooh, sorry for the yawn. There are faiths out there that, for example, use snakes as part of their religion. And is that permitted? Yeah, as long as kids are not, and underage kids are not being put in harm's way. Okay, you cannot raise a child without education. That is an expectation. All kids have to attend school. So that's part of free exercise. So a person cannot claim that they do not want their children to go to school because of their religion. Even the Amish have schools, and they may not go to full 12 years like we do. They generally go 8 years till middle school, but they have to, otherwise, only because of their faith are they permitted to do a little different than what most other people are. Okay. All right. And you cannot deprive a child of their basic needs just because you have a faith that says a kid, you shouldn't drink after 6. I'm just throwing that out here. You shouldn't drink water after 6 p.m. Well, kids need water. They need their basic needs. So you can't deprive them in the name of religion. Okay, establishment and free exercise clause often conflict with each other, and you don't need to write this down, by the way. This is just for your information. In schools, the religion issue is most prevalent. A student may raise her hand and say, "Teacher, can we say an opening prayer before this test?" Um, if the teacher says, yes, it looks like establishment of religion. If it says no, it's denying student free exercise. So, oops, I didn't mean to hit that. Sorry. So you can do that, but I cannot lead it, and it's your choice. But I will, and you can offer others to join in with you, but you cannot insist that the class does it. Um, for example, prior to, we've already said this, prior to a test. Okay, so let's move on. Now, the next one is freedom of the press. Again, a very important, sorry, I don't know why it went back. There we go. Freedom of the press. This is extremely important in this country. We value our media. And so the Constitution says Congress shall make no law abridging against stopping the freedom of the press. Okay? All right. Again, what can the press do and what can it do? Cannot do. So it can print any political position. It can make fun of people, especially politicians. You know, those are political cartoons, and they're pretty outrageous sometimes. Expose wrongs by the government. They can do all of that. They can also say things you might not agree with. You might disagree. So, and that is true. If you are conservative or liberal, you watch the news, depending on the station you watch, you may find they say things that you truly do not like, or in the newspaper, or on the internet. Now, what the press cannot do, it cannot libel intentionally injuring a person's reputation by false facts. Remember, they can tell the truth about freedom of speech. You can tell the truth about somebody, but you cannot intentionally injure a person's reputation by false facts. Disclose classified government secrets, not allowed. And detail how to make certain weapons. That has become a major issue. Okay, let's move on. Here's an example of the kind of stuff that is out there, political cartoons. This actually was a cartoon that had to do with Hillary and President Trump, obviously prior to the election in 2018. And so this is, you can see they're jabbing themselves. But if you notice, long noses, think of Pinocchio. All right, so moving on. All right. Now, there's also freedom of assembly. Congress shall make no law abridging against stopping the people from peaceable assembly. And this is even things that you may not like, even remotely. Here's again, the people, in terms of freedom of assembly, can protest, can parade with a permit, okay, and parade chanting hate slogans, and they can gather in public. What you cannot do, you cannot protest by throwing rocks or breaking windows. You cannot destroy property or hurt people. And you cannot hang out and loiter on private land without owner's permission. So you have to be careful. If you want to walk down a street in a parade, that belongs to the city. You cannot go onto somebody's private property without their permission. Okay? So this is what you can, as a people, do. Now, petition the government. Congress shall make no law stopping, abridging the people to petition the government for redress of grievances. Meaning, if there's a problem with the government and you want to address it, you can petition the government. Okay. So you may sue the government for wrongs. You can. You cannot be punished for exposing wrongs by the government. The court decides the wrongs. Right? It's important. The court decides the wrongs. In other words, they decide if an issue is wrong or not, and whether the government has done something wrong. All right, so now we're moving on. We finished the First Amendment, and let me say that is huge, and I have high expectations for you to remember that information. That is extremely important. Okay, Second Amendment. This is the right to bear arms. Many of you feel very strongly about this, one way or the other. But here's what it says. This is what the Constitution says. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. And part of this, the history of this, and the reason behind this, is because I wanted to be sure that the government never was, and this is true of England and much of Europe, never took away your rights, that you had a way of protecting yourself. And that was the idea, to be able to bear arms. So this is at a heart, it's extremely important, the Second Amendment. Okay, it's not just about having a handgun. It's about being able to protect yourself from the the over involvement of a government. All right, so what's the debate? You don't need to write this, by the way. What is the debate with the right of bear arms? These are the questions. How much can a government do to keep guns from criminals and youth? I wish I was there to talk with you about this, and hopefully we will be able to go back and take a look at a few things here. So, in order to keep, and this is the other question, in order to keep guns away from criminals, does that limit the right of law-abiding citizens? So, to have and bear arms. Okay. Okay, the gun debate obviously continues. Thousands of people die every year because of guns. Thousands of crimes are prevented because of guns. You can see there's the debate, and it's legitimate. They're legitimate. Okay, Third Amendment. The government cannot force you to shelter soldiers in your home without your consent in time of war or peace. So it cannot take over your home. Your home is private. And when we get to and talk in depth about the Fifth Amendment, this really becomes an important issue. Okay, now, the Amendments 4 through 8 preserve the rights of those accused. And you can see here Miranda versus Arizona. This is the beginning of the Miranda rights. We'll talk more about that. So now we're into the Fourth Amendment. This is protection against unreasonable search and seizure. And what does the government need in order to search your home? This is probable cause and a warrant given by judge. Yes, I expect you to write this all down. Okay. So in order for the government, this guy, to enter your home, he has to have this, a warrant. However, you can let them in. If they ask, knock on the door and say, can we come in and search? And if you decide you have no reason for them not to be able to search, let them in. There's no reason not to. But if you feel like they have to have that legal document, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, then by all means ask them to get a warrant. Okay, and they should be able to do that. So in order to get a warrant to search your home, they have to have probable cause, a reason for entering your home. And they have to then be able to present that to the judge, and the judge will then grant, if he agrees, a warrant. And that's all established in the Fourth Amendment. This is the idea of an unreasonable search and seizure. People or the police, federal officials cannot enter your home without having a reason. Thus the need for the protection against an unreasonable search and seizure. Okay, now we go to the Fifth Amendment. Okay, you cannot be tried for the same crime twice. That's called double jeopardy. And there's lots of TV shows and things that have shown that. But the issue is, you cannot be tried again for the same crime. Now, can you be tried again for other circumstances within a crime? That might be possible. It depends on the circumstances. Let me give you an example. You might have, for example, you might have be accused of maybe killing someone, okay? And those charges have been dropped, but they might also charge you with endangering children, possibly. And would that, and it was during that same time of the crime, you could be charged for that and found guilty under that. So, but it's the same, this important thing here, the same crime twice. Okay, you do not have to testify against yourself. You can, what's called the plead, I plead the fifth, all right? You must have due process of law before you are convicted. In other words, the government has to follow the rules. They cannot just go about doing things that is inappropriate. Now, they can, on occasion, they try to get away with that. Again, thinking in terms of people who have been arrested and found guilty and sent to jail, and then found out that there was error in what was done and that they did not receive their due process. And if that happens, then they can be released. Now, that doesn't mean they cannot be charged with the crime again. That is not necessarily a double jeopardy unless they were convicted of that crime. Then, yeah, then that double jeopardy does fit here. But if you are not convicted, see, that's what it says. You must have due process of law before you are convicted. But if you did not and you are convicted, then that is double jeopardy. Okay. The government cannot take your land unless it pays. That's known as eminent domain. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's look at the commercial over here. I learned in school today that you can't take the Fifth Amendment on a spelling test. I thought that was funny. Okay, yes, if you do not know how to spell, then that's not covered under the Fifth Amendment. So you gotta spell, folks. All right, Sixth Amendment. This is the right to a speedy trial and a lawyer. You have the right to a speedy trial by an impartial jury, not favoring either side. And you can also, you must also be told your charges. It cannot be a secret. You need to know your charges right up front. And you must be provided a lawyer if you cannot afford one. So this establishes that, in that you have the right to an attorney. Up until, however, the 1950s, this only applied if it was a federal case. Up till the 50s, if you were charged with a local crime, they did not have to provide you with an attorney. And we're going to see next year, in particular, we're going to look at that, see how that is handled. So, Seventh Amendment is the right to a civil trial. Now, we were talking in the Sixth Amendment about a criminal situation. Now, the Seventh Amendment addresses civil trial by jury, that you may have a trial, a civil trial by jury. In suits, and this is again just quote from the Constitution, in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. In other words, if you if the problem is, let's just use an example, somebody stole your car, okay, and damaged it, and then you could sue them as long as the amount of money was over $20, the amount of damage was over $20. So you have the right to a trial by jury as well. So you can sue and you can have a trial by jury in this suit. Eighth Amendment. This is bail and punishment. Eighth Amendment is all about no cruel and unusual punishment and no excessive bail. This is, you can see somebody through the window, prisoner kissing his mom in prison. So if you are charged with a misdemeanor, and it's significant in that you might have, oh, let me see, I'm trying to think of a good one, a theft that isn't a real heavy theft. It might be stealing plants off somebody's porch, or maybe stealing furniture off somebody's porch. It's not a big thing, but you were caught and put in jail. What they can't ask you until your trial to pay millions of dollars for something as simple or as silly as that. So the idea is the bail should fit the crime. Now, if you were caught as a mass murderer, such as just happened, the guy who, I believe it was Illinois, who went and killed all those people, okay, his bail better be set extremely high, maybe in the millions of dollars, so that he can't get out to hurt anyone else. But at the same time, the second part, no cruel and unusual punishment. And of course, the big issue there is capital punishment, or the killing of someone by the state after being found guilty of a heinous crime. Is that cruel and unusual punishment? So it does establish this is very controversial. Okay, oops, I went a little ahead of myself. So this is very controversial, and it does constantly raise question as to whether that, as a state, is that to kill someone in this situation, is that cruel and unusual punishment? All right, the Ninth Amendment states this is the rights reserved to the states. All right, so this is a little confusing, and hopefully we can get it clear. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights, remember this is rights spelled out, shall not be construed or denied or disparaged others retained by the people. In other words, unless it's spelled out in the Constitution, the government of the United States cannot take rights away from the states. Okay? The national government is one thing, the states are something separate. Okay, so this allows states to grant more rights than given, allows states to grant more rights than given under the Constitution. Issues such as gay marriage, drinking age, driving age, abortion limits, doggone it, hit too many. Okay, all of those have been issues. Now, gay marriage, this is, I left that in even though the Supreme Court pretty much took care of that one. The Supreme Court took this one on, and of course now gay marriage is legal. However, things like drinking age, driving age, abortion limitations, they can be decided by states. So they're the rights reserved to states. Now the 10th Amendment, these are the rights reserved to the people. This again can be kind of confusing. But again, powers not delegated or given to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by the states. Now there's no law by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. All right. So this kind of brings the people into this. If a federal and state governments do not permit something, then the people are allowed to do it. It's as simple as that. If there's something that they haven't made a law against, then you are permitted. Okay? There's no reason not to. For example, this is a silly example, but hopefully it brings home the idea. If you want to ride your bike on the sidewalk, the city may say, no, you're not allowed. But you are allowed, because they haven't taken any rights away, you are allowed to ride your bike on the street. You can also ride your bike on the bike trails, because they haven't taken that right from you. So, I mean, that's, again, I said that's kind of a silly example, but hopefully you get the idea. So, the rights of the people that are not already laws are still, the people are still allowed to do them. People have unspoken rights. Okay. So, no, don't, never mind about that. Okay, so those are the 10 amendments. Hopefully you have written these down and are going to, you need to upload them to the February 19th assignment on Moodle. Get those uploaded and spend some time studying them. These are extremely important when it comes to the the end of course essay. Okay? All right. Well, you guys have a good day. Thank you. Bye.